It's now 3 o'clock. Welcome everyone to the May meeting of the rural city of Wangaratta. Clause 25 of the governance rules provide the following. This public meeting is being recorded to improve access to the meeting for our community. The recording will be published and will be retained by Council in accordance with Council's legal obligations. As a visit to the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. Acknowledgement to country. It is my privilege to respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of our wonderful country. We give thanks to our ancestors whose vision, determination, innovation and resilience built our prosperous, inclusive and democratic country. We acknowledge that we are the proud inheritors of this legacy, and we accept the challenge to continue to nourish and nurture our communities, and we pledge to work to implement and enhance opportunities for the benefit of future generations, our children and their children into the future. Item 2, which is our opening prayer. Almighty God, we humbly ask Thee to bless and guide this Council in its deliberations so that we may truly preserve the welfare of the people whom we serve. Councillors, we move to item number 5, the acceptance of apologies. Well, actually, I should go back to item number 3 and acknowledge Tom Kaleli-Donaghy, who is here in the place of Sarah Brindley. So thank you, Tom, for being here today. So move to item number 5, which is the acceptance of apologies and granting of leave of absence. Do we have that? No. We don't have a citizenship ceremony, although we did have one last Wednesday, a very successful and wonderful ceremony. Item number 7, which is the confirmation of the last minutes. Do we have someone to do that? Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Someone to second? Councillor Benton. Councillors, are we all in agreement? Thank you. That's the confirmation of the minutes has been carried. Any conflict of interest disclosures? Reception of petitions. Item 10, which is the hearing of deputations. Do we have no? And item number 11, which is presentations of reports. We've got 2 reports tonight or this afternoon, and I'll ask Councillor Fuller to give his report to the meeting.
Thank you, Chair and colleagues. I'd like to take a moment to speak to a topic that once again touches our community in an unfortunate way. It is unfortunately all too common that we encounter stories of gendered violence, and in some circumstances death by domestic partner or known associate. Recently, I attended an awareness event collated by local sporting clubs and the Centre Against Violence, along with the Mayor and Deputy Mayor. Whilst within these 4 walls, we're not resourced to create prevention, we're all versed in our ability to advocate to high levels of government, and we certainly are able to assist stakeholders such as the Centre Against Violence to elevate discourse in our community. From sporting clubs to community organisations, there is a part, albeit sometimes small, role that we can collectively play in working towards changing the tone on domestic and gendered violence. At council level, I look forward to having a conversation with my colleagues about potential future actions we can consider in order to help this discussion. Policy integration with stakeholders to encourage a standard of conduct we set, training and resource collaboration with industry and peak bodies, community awareness across multiple channels and events, things that we can do at a local level to work towards lowering the incidence of this scourge affecting the number of people both outwardly and silently. Thank you again for allowing me this time to present this report. Attached and minutes will be some sobering statistics from the Centre Against Violence. I won't read them all, but I encourage others to do so. And I move that my report be added to the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. We need someone to move that. Councillor Fitzpatrick. Would someone like to second? Maxwell.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, you had a headset microphone previously. Has it got lost?
No, it hasn't got lost. It is in use when we go to our country meetings.
The headset won't work perfectly.
I'm sure it will. Thank you. The second council report is one that I am going to give. My report is to update this meeting on council activity in response to the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund, which is being imposed by the state government on July the 1st, and the community protest against the proposed 550 hectare solar factory in Meadow Creek. With the ESBF, local landholders and the CFA have been active in their opposition to the new tax and the financial burden it will impose, in particular in rural areas. The rural city of Wangaratta Council is also concerned about the resource burden this will impose on the organisation and the financial issues it will highlight through the collection process. Landowners have already said that they won't pay the tax. However, the tax will be collected from councils regardless of the monies received. And that's a point that needs to be emphasised. There have been active and passive protests across the municipality demonstrating the inequity of this tax hike. The rural city of Wangaratta has advocated to the Treasurer, the Regional Cities Group and to the MAV, as well as signing a petition tabled in Parliament by State Member Tim McCurdy. Opponents of the solar factory met in Oxley on 22nd May to demonstrate their concerns about the proposed industrial facility being built on prime agricultural land, asking the Planning Minister to visit and refuse the application. The rally also raised concerns about the lack of appeal through the VCAT process, the fact this proposal is not in a designated renewable energy zone, the fact that it is an opportunistic developer-driven proposal, the significant environmental impacts on a major water catchment, as well as the impacts on agriculture and tourism. The rural city of Wangaratta has made a submission to the solar factory opposing the development on planning grounds, and we have written to the Planning Minister restating our concerns against the proposal. The Council has also voiced opposition to Minister Symes, the MAV and the Regional Cities Victoria Group opposing the changes that remove third-party appeal rights to VCAT on large-scale renewable energy projects. To this day, the Minister has not accepted an invitation to actually visit the King Valley to understand the impact of this development would have on agriculture, the environment, the social fabric of the community and, of course, to the local economy. So that is my report. I have another report afterwards, but we need to have that receipted. Councillor Fuller?
Move to table that, please.
To second. Councillor Fitzpatrick. You're all in agreement. Thank you. Before I go on to the next item, I'd like to make a notice of Vale to Diane Mangan, who died on Saturday. Diane was the gallery director here at the council for some time. I knew Diane very well. Diane and I were the first through the inaugural Alpine Valleys leadership program. Diane was someone who was instrumental in raising the profile of art and its associated culture here in the rural city of Wangaratta. And Diane had the ability to make art a mainstream thing. She made a valuable contribution, to our community through the gallery. She, in fact, was going to come on Saturday to an event that she actually initiated in the first instance. So we say Vale Diane and give thanks for the contribution that she made to our community. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Benson. Okay, councillors, we now move to item 12.1, which is the former Ovens College site and the rates concession.
Thank you, Mayor Grant. This item is dealing with a request from the development partner on that site of ours, Nestor Developments. The council purchased what is formerly the Ovens College Tech site many years ago, more than 10 years ago in fact, and has preserved it since that time to ensure it was used for a valuable community use rather than just for typical commercial development. In recent times, the council ran an expression of interest process looking for a development partner to develop that site for social, affordable key worker accommodation and housing and some related commercial uses. Out of that process, we have entered into an agreement to sell the site to Nestor, as is set out in the report. Nestor is proposing to build around 175 dwellings, and as I mentioned, they will be a mixture of key worker accommodation, social housing and affordable housing. So quite a high community value use of the site. As part of that development, they are seeking some concession on rates on just the social housing component of that site. And this report is asking council to give me authorisation to negotiate and execute an agreement for that. One of the concerns we've considered in considering this is whether that sets a precedent for all social housing. We don't believe it does. The scale of the development is very large. As I said, it's about 175 dwellings in total, which are primarily for community benefit, along with some other commercial developments. So I guess if we're setting a precedent, it's a precedent for developments of this sort of scale and breadth, and we'd be happy to have a conversation with anybody else who's doing a similar sort of development.
Thank you, CEO. I'll put the issue out to the audience. Does anyone have a question to this particular item? Not. Councillors, we have a recommendation. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Benton. Would someone like to second? Councillor Maxwell. Councillor Benton, would you like to talk to the...
I think it's just to reiterate, it's on the this is on the social housing side of the great concessions, and to make that very clear, it's not on the whole site going forward, and also in relationship to any other development. So I think you can treat it on its merit as it comes forward. Going forward, this is something that's being pushed not only by the state government and making sure that and other governments will be accommodating the social housing side of going forward. And it was something that was a covenant, I believe, on the title when we bought it. Covers that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Benton. Councillor Maxwell, did you want to speak to that, please? Thank you.
Yes, just in relation to this opportunity that we have with Nested, I think that we all over many years have heard about the housing crisis, and certainly we have our own large numbers of people who are homeless here in our municipality. So I think that this goes a long way in us supporting those who are in great need of housing, and I certainly hope this won't be the first or the last of these initiatives to support our community.
Would any other councillor like to speak? I think what we've heard today, council has been in negotiation for some time with Nested. Their proposal is putting an emphasis on social and affordable, as well as other types of accommodation, and I think we have not only reached a situation where people are struggling to find accommodation, they are struggling to be able to afford accommodation, and I think this is going to help make that difference, and council, I think, is playing a very important role in helping this particular proposal get over the line, and we're certainly continuing to work with Nested to ensure that we are able to realise the potential of that site and realise the actual service that it will provide to our community. So we've got a recommendation. It's been moved by Councillor Benton and seconded by Councillor Maxwell. Are we all in agreement? Thank you, councillors. That's been moved and carried. We then move to item 13.1, which is the 2024-2025 quarter 3 forecast review.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 13.1 is the quarter 3 forecast review, and this report is presented to Council to provide an update on our financial performance and our anticipated full year financial position based on the last 3 months. There have been some substantial movements in the forecast of this quarter, which include several revenue categories decreasing. There's been a decrease in the full year accounting surplus by 3.32 million, but we are projecting a surplus of 11.48 million. There's also been a decrease in our capital works expenditure by 9.52 million to 22.41 million, including 6.7 million which will be carried over to the next financial year. Throughout the report, you'll see some details about where there have been some decreases, and I'll just highlight some of those. We have seen user fees decrease by $1.2 million for the quarter. Contributions non-monetary have had a net increase of 5.42 million. Capital grants have had a decrease of 4.32 million, noting again that some items are being reconsidered for the 25-26 budget. We have had a positive variance to our employee benefits of 1.6 million, and that has left us in the position that we're in today with further information in the report for councillors.
Thank you, councillors. Well, I need to ask our audience if there's a question to this particular item. If not, the councillors, would someone like to do? Councillor Fuller? Would someone like to second? Councillor Fitzpatrick? Councillor Fuller, would you like to speak to this? No. Councillor Fitzpatrick? No, and I think, you know, the interesting thing is it's a fairly lean environment that we're working in terms of grants, in terms of our ability to raise revenue, and I guess, you know, the earlier comments around the fund, which is obviously going to impact on our community. Council's taken quite a lot of time to consider how we may best frame our budget, and it's not even going to be meat and potatoes this time. I think it's going to be very light on the meat and just potatoes this time. So, councillors, we've got a recommendation moved by Councillor Fuller and seconded by Councillor Fitzpatrick. Are we all in agreement? Thank you. That's been carried. We now move to item 13.2, which is our revenue and rating plan 2025 to 2029.
Thank you, Mayor. The Local Government Act 2020 requires Council to adopt a revenue and rating plan to cover a minimum of 4 financial years by 30th of June following the Council election. This revenue and rating plan, which is for 25 to 29, sets out Council's framework which will undertake in revenue raising and rating activities to ultimately fund infrastructure and services as required to deliver. The plan's set to establish the most appropriate financially sustainable revenue rating strategy for Council and the municipality. The plan addresses the following revenue streams: rates, service charges, statutory and non-statutory user fees, government grants, and other revenue sources. Most significantly, the rating and revenue plan outlines the principles and strategic framework the Council will utilise in calculating and distributing rates to property owners, specifically including the definition of rating categories and their differential amounts.
An opportunity for the audience to ask a question on this particular item, and I have a question here from Jennifer Garrett, who I see is in our audience. Do you want me to read out your question for you, Jennifer? Yep. You're happy for that? I'll read the question and Tom will provide the answer. So your first question, Jennifer, was under the current rating strategy, i.e. 2024 to 2025 financial year, how many properties in the rural city of Wangaratta are rated in the mixed use category?
We have 6 mixed use properties that are in this category.
Thank you. Question 2, in lieu of the mixed use category, how many or how are such properties, land which is being used for commercial or industrial purpose and has a dwelling which is being used as a place of residence rated?
Thank you. The rating will be reallocated based on the primary use of the property. So of those 6, they'll be reallocated appropriately through to commercial or general rates, depending on what the property use is.
Thanks, Tom. How many properties in the rural city of Wangaratta, and this is question 3, how many properties in the rural city of Wangaratta currently have 2 rate notices for exactly that same property, i.e. 1 folio, 1 title, 1 size?
Council officers weren't able to find an answer for that in time for the meeting today. It would require an extensive search, but it is something we can take on notice and provide at a later date if you wish.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the audience on this particular item? Oh, another question. Oh, goodness gracious. Really missed that on Jennifer. Question 4. So with 2 rate notices, a single property would have to pay the revamped and increased Emergency Services Volunteers Fund twice, or as some may call it, double dipping due to the rural city of Wangaratta's rating system.
Thank you for that, Mayor. Where there are properties that have 2 rates notices, each notice will attract a separate fixed fee, while the variable charge will only be applied once, based on the capital improvement value of that property. The only exemption in this case applies for rural properties which may be eligible to apply for a single farm enterprise exemption, and this approach aligns with the current fire services levy framework.
Thanks, Jennifer, for the questions. So, councillors, we have a recommendation to adopt the Revenue and Rating Plan 2025 to 2029. Would someone like to move, please? Councillor Fuller? Someone to second? Councillor Benton? Councillor Fuller, would you like to speak to this, please?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to acknowledge the 138 also people that contributed submissions to the making of this report. Also the staff, Jess, Tina and the rest of the finance team that come together to put together this strategy for us. It's a labouring task in terms of getting the right balance and trying to move the burden to the appropriate mixed, balanced space that we sort of want to get it to. So I thank them for their contribution.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Councillor Benton, would you like to speak? And yes, to perhaps reiterate Councillor Fuller's comments that this has been a very labour-intensive process to actually arrive at a position that Council felt was equitable across the whole community. It's never easy to do that, and you know, there was quite a bit of heartache and thought involved in trying to strike the best balance in this particular environment, and we hope that we've achieved that. So with the recommendation that Councillor Fuller has moved, Councillor Benton has seconded, are we all in favour, councillors? Thank you. Councillors, we move now to item 13.3, which is the 225-226 fees and charges.
Thank you again, Mayor. Council is required to adopt a schedule of fees and charges for each financial year in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020. And the 25-26 fees and charges report outlines the pricing structure for use of fees and charges and statutory fees and charges, and is prepared in conjunction with the development of the 25-26 budget. These fees and charges have been reviewed by each business unit to ensure that they represent the determined fee structure and account for increases of CPI, benchmarking against market pricing, and full cost recovery where possible. It's recommended to adopt next year's fees and charges now to allow business units sufficient time to communicate any price changes to community, and customers in readiness for them to come into effect from 1 July 2025. All proposed fees and charges will ultimately be included in the 25-26 budget.
Does anyone have a question to this particular item? If not, councillors, we have a recommendation before us. Would someone like to move, please? Councillor Bustle. Councillor Maxwell to second. Councillor Bustle, would you like to speak to this particular item?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think it's quite a good idea to be doing this in advance of the budget this year. So thank you to everybody who's done that.
Thank you, Councillor Bustle. Councillor Maxwell, would you like to speak? Would any other councillor like to speak to the recommendation? So, councillors, we have a recommendation moved by Councillor Bustle and seconded by Councillor Maxwell. Are we all in support? Thank you. That's been carried. We then move to item 13.4, which is instruments of appointment and authorisation.
Thank you. This report is presented to Council to approve the updated S11A and S11B instruments of appointment and authorisations under both the Planning and Environment Act and the Environment Protection Act, respectively. So Council does regularly update its suite of delegations to reflect changes in legislation, operational capacity and efficiency in service delivery. The specific instruments that we're talking about today will ensure suitably qualified council representatives are appointed to undertake the work and enforce the provisions of the Planning and Environment Act 1997 and the Environment Protection Act 2017. I'll just note as well for councillors that there were attachments circulated today, which were new attachments with this report, noting council officers by their names, not by positions, in line with the advice that we've received on this matter.
So do we have to make those names public today? Should we accept?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Right, okay. Now, question to the audience. Does anyone have a question on this particular item? So, councillors, we have a recommendation before us on the instruments of appointment and authorisations. Would someone like to move? Councillor Fuller, thank you. Someone to second? Councillor Fitzpatrick. Councillor Fuller, would you like to speak? Councillor Fitzpatrick, would you like to speak? Councillors, we have a recommendation moved by Councillor Fuller and seconded by Councillor Fitzpatrick. We're all in support. Thank you. Now, Manager of People and Culture acting. Do we actually have to announce the names of these people?
I might ask the CEO if we can confirm that, please.
The resolution just refers to the names specified in the attachment. Make sure the current attachment is in the minutes.
Thank you. Okay, that's been clarified. I appreciate that. Okay, we move to item 13.5, which is the Audit and Risk Committee independent member reappointment.
Thank you, Mayor. Council's Audit and Risk Committee was established in 2020 in line with the Local Government Act, and the committee states that it must include 2 councillors and at least 3 and up to 4 independent members who are not councillors and who are not members of council staff. Council is requested to endorse the reappointment of Matt Fagins for a further 3-year term in line with the committee charter.
Thanks. Is there a question from the audience on this particular item? If not, councillors, we have a recommendation. Would someone like to move, please? Councillor Benton. Someone to second? Councillor Winters, thank you. Councillor Benton, would you like to speak to this particular item?
I'll just say, it's really outstanding that Matt has an opportunity that only the operating committee for a short time, and he's very, very conscientious and acts going forward, and I think he takes his job position very seriously. That's all I'd like to say.
Councillor Winters, would you like to speak? No? Would any other councillor like to speak? Are there for or against? I certainly reiterate Councillor Benton's comments about the importance of our independent audit and risk membership and the great work that they do. And you know, they wade through pages and pages and pages of information that you know, from the outside looking in must be at times quite tedious, but they do a marvellous job, and we really appreciate the fact that these people who are very experienced and very understanding are willing to put their hands up again and you know, make themselves available to the rural city for this important work. So we thank them for that. So councillors, we have Councillor Benton and Councillor Winters that have moved and seconded. Are we all in agreement? Thank you, councillors. We now move to item 13.6, which is the audit and risk independent remuneration. And Tom, you're here again.
Yes, thank you. Council's Audit and Risk Committee monitors Council's reporting, governance and compliance to ensure that we've got sound financial and risk management and oversee our internal and external audit programs. Under the Charter, a review of the levels of remuneration for independent members of the Audit and Risk Committee is to be conducted at least annually. To provide a consistent level of remuneration with other Audit and Risk Committees across the local government sector, we're asking Council to formally endorse an increase by Council resolution.
Thank you, Tom. A question for the audience. Does anyone wish to make a comment or ask a question on this particular item? If not, councillors, we have a recommendation in front of us. Would someone like to move? Councillor Winters? Councillor Bussell? Thank you. Councillor Winters, would you like to speak to this particular item, please?
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I've had the opportunity to observe at each of the Audit and Risk Committee meetings since becoming a councillor late last year, and I've been continually impressed by the knowledge and expertise of the independent members of the committee. They bring expert level knowledge in financial management, risk and public sector management, and I fully support the increase in remuneration for the independent members and the committee chair.
Yes, well said, Councillor Winters. Councillor Bussell, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to, I think Councillor Winters has said everything, so I want to thank the members of the
Thank you. And the actual increase is a small price to pay for the expertise that they offer and support to council. So councillors, we have a recommendation moved by Councillor Winters, seconded by Councillor Bussell. Are we all in agreement? Thank you, councillors. It's been moved. We now move to item 13.7, which is the Council Plan Community Engagement Report. And Tom Cowelly is going here. It's your gig again.
Thank you. And my last comment. This report is presented to note the findings from our community consultation related to both the community vision and the council plan, which also relates to our municipal public health and wellbeing plan and will inform our 10-year financial plan. Council has undertaken substantial community engagement to inform this report, and we've captured feedback from over 3,200 different items related to these topics. This process was undertaken from November 2024 up until April this year, and there were surveys, workshops, targeted engagements and pop-up events which were facilitated by council officers and through consultants who were engaged to help undertake the project. Officers are recommending that council note this report to formally recognise the valuable input provided by the community and to use this information to help guide their development of key council strategic documents, including the community vision, council plan and the 10-year financial plan. Council would also like to thank community members who took the time and effort to provide their thoughts and ideas throughout this process.
Thank you, Tom. Now, I have got some questions that relate to this particular item. Will I say that for public? Right, okay. Yeah, all right. Well, I'll put that aside question from the audience on this particular item? If not, I actually will make a comment on this particular item before I move to the recommendation. Just to say that the community vision, the council plan and the 10-year financial plan will set the strategic direction for the council's delivery focus for the next 4 years and beyond. Community engagement is critical to shape the priorities identified and funded through these plans. Substantial engagement activities have been undertaken with feedback received from over 2,000 community members. And having been through that process, it's not been an easy process in as much it's been laborious. There's been a lot of information that council has had to take on. We've had to work through the various comments that have come back from the community. Some of them realistic, some of them unrealistic, and some of them, just simply a wish list of what they'd like to see. But what has been important in the process is that we've been able to get a sense of, what the community priorities are. And I think that's been one of the things that, we've had to sift through a lot of information to be able to distill it down to a document that actually will set our direction into the future. It's worth, I think, noting that the report outlines our community's top 10 priorities for the future, and they can be summarised as such, that Wangaratta is a place for everyone. And I mean, it was hard to actually arrive at that comment, but it does summarise that Wangaratta is a place where we all want to live and we all want to live happily. Community health and wellbeing, the second. 3, places and spaces for community connection and culture. 4, transport, roads and infrastructure. 5, care for nature and the environment. 6, cost of living and affordability. 7, community safety. 8, violence and harm from alcohol and drug use. 9, local economy and employment. 10, communication, accountability and transparency. Some of those priorities are about absolutely what council can do and make an impact on. Some of the things that come on our advocacy and the things that we advocate beyond council for. They're the things that we support. They're the things not necessarily that we will do, but support into the future. So, but I think what is absolutely important in this process is that we as councillors will continue to engage with the community. This is simply a big step forward, but the steps will be continued by the work that councillors do with that community. We continue to listen to what the community has to say, and we will try as much as we can to provide with ongoing feedback on what our community priorities are. So, again, I'd like to thank everyone for being part of it. I've had numerous conversations with people across the community that have been positive about the engagement process and appreciate the fact that they've been able to come to the table and make a contribution instead of standing back and being critical. They've been part of the process. So it's been perhaps not necessarily perfect, but it's been a wonderful outcome all the same. So thank you again to everybody. And so now we have our community plan engagement report that we have a recommendation, and I'd like the councillor perhaps to report. Councillor Maxwell. Someone to second? Councillor Winters. Councillor Maxwell, would you like to speak, please?
I would, thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, I would just like to thank the community. I think that over the many surveys, the engagement that we've had over at the PAC and at other venues throughout our municipality, we have had a great turnout, and it was really encouraging to see the community invested in what they would like to see. Notwithstanding, whilst that feedback was collated and deliberated on, it also has to align with a lot of our policies, and the obvious would be our budget. So I would also really like to thank the officers, staff, CEO, my colleagues here, for taking the time and spending many, many hours deliberating over this, discussing it, so that we can actually try and achieve outcomes that are based on what our community has suggested they would like to see. And I think this really flies in the face of, there are times when we hear the negative comments that council doesn't listen to the community, and I think this is a perfect example, particularly given that these plans are carried over such a long time, and it's imperative that we have community feedback. So we have certainly tried our best to ensure that we have been inclusive of the comments and suggestions that were made, whilst also aligning them to our potato budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Councillor Winters, would you like to?
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank the staff for the massive amount of work that they've put into this process. I'm one of the councillors that hold the community engagement portfolio, and see firsthand the care, compassion and passion that the staff have dedicated to this process. I'd also like to thank the community members who gave their time, lived experience and feedback to this process. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. And it certainly has been a collaborative process between the council and the community, but it is about being a community document, and that's the most important part of that. So, councillors, we have a recommendation moved by Councillor Maxwell, seconded by Councillor Winters. Councillor Fuller, would you like to speak?
Sorry, Chair.
Sorry about that.
Just whilst acknowledging the appreciation of all those that contributed, but also looking forward to seeing where these priorities take us in terms of the action plan. 152 actions in the previous version, some lighter versions this time hopefully, but in particular the safety-based ones around general well-being of the community. Thank you.
So, Councillor Maxwell moved, Councillor Winters to second. Councillors, are we all in agreement? Thank you. We now move forward to item 14.1, which is our curbside glass and organics expansion. The Director of Community and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mayor. This report is presented to Council to seek endorsement for the introduction of additional curbside collection services, expansion of the food and organics garden organics service, and a separate glass collection service. These services are being proposed to ensure compliance with Section 60 of the Circular Economy Act. Under the Circular Economy Act, all Victorian councils and alpine resorts are required to introduce a curbside photo service by the year 2030 and a separate curbside glass service by the year 2027. The proposed rollout of these services will be aligned within the existing collection schedule, designed to support efficiency, community convenience and environmental outcomes. While the container deposit scheme reduces the amount of glass into curbside recycling bins, it does not cover all glass types due to processing limitations within Australia. A separate glass service recovers the remaining glass for reuse and recycling and prevents glass from contaminating the other recycling streams, particularly plastic and paper, which lowers its viability. Council conducted curbside recycling audits in 2023, and it found that each household in the rural city of Wangaratta on average generates about 1,500 kilos, all households generate about 1,500 kilograms of glass per week. Of that, only about 25% is suitable for CDS. Using the rollout of this system, officers are recommending using an 80 to 120 litre purple lidded bin with collection every 8 weeks, delivery to individual households in the designated service areas outlined in the recommendation. In total, there would be 12,007 households would receive a purple
glass bin. Based on average use, this service is expected to collect around 1,000 tonnes of glass per year. The service will apply to homes within townships, low-density residential, rural living zones covering urban Wangaratta and surrounding townships. The cost of these services for the curbside glass collection bin, the additional charge to the resident is $0 for the curbside photo service, and that would include a reduction from a 240 waste bin to a 140 litre waste bin. The additional charge is $34. The recommendation is on the screen.
Thank you. Is there a question from the audience on this particular item? Could you come forward and say who you are and ask the question? And sorry.
Hi, Anne Anderson, through the chair. Marcus, is this going to be subject to the waste management policy where strata complexes can negotiate a number of these on site because it's not been through policy?
Yes, absolutely. So there is a piece of work that still needs to be done, and we actually talk about it in the recommendation, so maybe I should have actually read it in completeness. But it talks about further information to go out to community members around exactly those type of things.
Any other questions? Yes? State your name for the meeting report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Brian Cox. From the report, I see that there are 14,000 bins required. Who is going to pay for the bins? The state government has made it mandatory, so are they going to pay the bill? Or they are, so we don't have to buy the bins.
And that's part of the process, Brian. We're looking at trying to take advantage of the fact that state government are offering, I suppose, an incentive for councils to get on board quickly, and with the purple bins, that has been provided through a grant process.
So, is it possible to have all of these bins numbered so we know who owns the bin? So, if I come from 46 Swan Street and I have S46 or something on my bin, I agree with this picking up very irregularly, like 4 times a year, but I reckon a lot of bins will end up with chicken feed in them. And how are we going to know whether they're being sold at the Sunday market, or we know whose bin's being sold? So is there going to be some identification process?
Well, I'm not sure whether an identification process is actually necessary, but to actually provide an identification process across the municipality would be a major task, which council hasn't considered in the budget. So, and it would come at a cost, and I would imagine a significant cost. However, if you were to write 46 Swan Street on your bin, I'm sure you're most welcome, Ryan.
Anyway, I just think that a lot of them will get lost.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. But I'm glad we're not paying for it.
Yes. Okay, councillors, we have this particular report in front of us, and I understand that Councillor Benton is going to put forward an alternative recommendation.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yes, it's got in mind, I'll read it out. The Council 1 introduces a quarterly collection of curbside purple glass bins of 80 litre as described in the report for the following areas: Wangaratta, Wangaratta, Wulgara, Killawarra, Kensington Drive, Wangaratta South, Glenrowan, Hamilton Park, Oxley, Millwall, Tarrawingi, Eldorado, Warrowley, Everton, Beach Springers, Moorview, Whitfield, Chesham, townships and low-density residential zones. Number 2, delivers the glass collection service utilising council's existing curbside team and fleet. Defers the expansion of the existing collection of curbside green FOGO bins to the following townships: North Wangaratta, Waldara, Illawarra, Kensington Drive, Wangaratta South, Glenrowan, Tarrawingi, Eldorado, Warrowley, Everton, Beach Springers, Moorview, Whitfield, Chesham, townships, low-density residential zones until the requirements of the rollout are released by the state and the impact and the benefits can be fully determined. Number 4, undertakes a comprehensive community engagement education project campaign to inform the community of the adopted changes to the curbside waste recycling service. Full stop.
Thank you, Councillor Benton. Councillor Benton has put forward a potential motion. Would someone like to second? Councillor Russell? Councillor Benton, would you like to speak?
Just to probably reiterate some of the comments in line to get this started so we can actually get some of the grant money. We've decided to just roll out the glass bins at the moment, as I understand it. Going forward, we'll be look at the FOGO, the green waste bins in relation to the collections as in 2030. Is that the way I understand it?
By 2030.
By 2030, the FOGO bins.
I neglected to, Councillor Russell, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is long overdue to have a purple bin. I have some concerns about the 8 litre. I think I might fill up pretty quickly. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think it is worth reiterating that this is a process that is being asked of state government onto local government. We're being asked to provide this service to the community. You know, we're seeing glass collection obviously, and into the future, how the green FOGO bins will be rolled out will probably depend a lot on what the state government provides back to the community.
Thank you, Chair. I think some of the gallery had trouble either hearing or following what was being proposed. I'm not surprised it was quite lengthy.
Wangaratta Dairy, not in it.
Just before I check that specifically, if I could just summarise what's being proposed, it is essentially as per what's written in the agenda, with the exception of deferring any further rollout of the FOGO to a later date, but the glass rollout is otherwise as was proposed. Wangaratta Dairy is not specifically listed.
It says Wangaratta, North Wangaratta, Waldara, Killawarra, Kensington Drive, Wangaratta South, Glenrowan, Hamilton Park, Oxley, Millawa, Tarrawingi, Eldorado, Warrowley, Everton, Petrelbar, Springhurst, Moorview, Whitfield and Chesham Township and low density residential zones. That will be the curbside purple glass bin, which will be collected on a quarterly basis.
So it's low density area, is that what you call them, Wangaratta Dairy then?
No, just the bit about township and low density residential zones applies only to Whitfield and Chesham. So it's the township and low density residential parts of Whitfield and Chesham, not the outlying rural parts of those townships. So if Wangaratta Dairy is not listed, so it's not currently proposed to be rolled out there.
So you've got Killawarra, what's further out, but you haven't got Wangaratta Dairy.
Waldara would probably encompass that. So look, can we take that on notice and we'll just follow that up for you. I'll get your name later on and we'll provide that information back to you. All right, councillors, we've got a motion moved by Councillor Benton, a recommendation moved by Councillor Benton and second by Councillor Bustle. Anyone would like to speak? Councillor Winters?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very happy to see that community engagement and education was included again in the alternative motion, so thank you. I believe it's really important that we clearly communicate the reason why the purple bins are important to the community. It's more than just we're being told to do this. It's also really important to have glass out of our landfill and out of our recycling bins, and to where it can be of best use.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Winters. Any other councillors wishing to speak either for or against the recommendation? So councillors, a recommendation put by Councillor Benton, Councillor Bustle to second. We all in agreement. Thank you, councillors. That's been moved. We now move to item number 15, which is sustainability and culture. 15.1, tender award for provision of environmental health services. Director of Sustainability and Culture.
Thank you. The current contract for the delivery of Council's environmental health services expires in June this year. The tender process has been undertaken for a new contract to deliver this service, as required under Council's procurement policy. This process included advertising the tender opportunity and evaluation by a panel. The panel and this report recommend that the contract be awarded to Curno Environmental Services for a period of 3 years, with the option of a further 2-year extension.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Does anyone have a question on this particular item? If not, councillors, we have a recommendation in front of us. Would someone like to move? Councillor Fuller? Someone to second? Councillor Fitzpatrick? Councillor Fuller, would you like to speak to? No? Would any other councillor like to speak? Okay, councillors, a recommendation moved by Councillor Fuller, seconded by Councillor Fitzpatrick. Are we all in agreement? Thank you. Now, disclose the contract price.
Thank you. Yes, the contract price is $489,404.39, excluding GST for the first year, increasing by CPI annually.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. We now move to item 19.1, which is a notice of motion, 19.1, notice of motion number 70, Deputy Mayor Councillor Harvey Benton.
Thanks, Mayor. I move this notice of motion. Council strongly advocates that local government organisations and appropriate state government representatives for action against the implementation of the state government ESP tablets and emergency state services volunteer fund on our community for the following reasons: the lack of consultation in implementing the fund, the methodology of collecting the fund, the negative impact on our community.
Thank you, Councillor Benton. Would someone like to second that? Councillor Benton, would you like to speak to your motion?
The changes to the fire service levy are now through the collection and the methodology are very unclear. I will say within the last probably couple of hours we've had a bit more clarification come through in relationship to the collection of the fund. We're not quite to clear it anymore, but what, just to say that the legal legalities of it, that we will have to collect the fund. The volunteers are to be charged and reimbursed if any. The collection of the levy by council, the responsibility of the collection of the unpaid rates and levy will become council's responsibility. Therefore, council will become a bank to the state government. The actual amounts are unclear, even what is publicly available, to give it to community individuals some time to plan. Volunteers must now pay the levy in full, then if eligible, claim back a capped amount of what they've had to pay. The table shown on the government web page to the liability of the individual property owners is at present presents to the, of the fire service levies to remain, or is calculated in the emergency. That's the levy we already pay, and the fixed charge, as I understand it, going to be included into the fire service levy. But understanding that is that the property owners, the Rural City will have to have a $3.3 million liability in the next 25, 26 years, and at present, this is equivalent to a 10% rate rise on and above their rates. I will also say that it will affect the renting facilities in Wangaratta. All renters will probably have to have a 10% rate rise that will be passed on going forward. So it's not just going to affect the rural sector as well. I will like to add in relationship to what has been quoted and paid. There's only 95% of this fund is going to service the CFA needs. They've already said that, so therefore you have to take on board that there's a discount of 5% getting paid to the CFA. The whole thing is rushed through. I don't know how, and discussions with officers here to implement the system because it's on a sliding scale or a differential rating system on top of our own differential rating system as well. Going forward, there's a lot of people that I've been contacted and I'm going to pay the rates, and as it's stated, and I think it's clarified, and I'll look to the CEO to correction in relation to this. It'll be if they don't pay the full amount, and the government will still pay proportionally the amount that they are owed in that forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Beaton. Councillor Bustle, did you want to speak to this motion?
I'd like to, thanks, Madam Mayor. This is a terrible tax, shocking tax, and I think the tax volunteers and then get on a fire truck. It just goes against everything that I believe in to be taxing volunteers, one way or the other. It's a terrible tax. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Fuller?
Thank you, Chair. Whilst this conversation has been smouldering for a period of time, it feels as though the government has rushed this own goal through and we are now left to implement against the will of our constituents. I cannot wrap my head around how they feel this is fair that volunteers themselves are now going to cop the brunt of this conversation. Thank you.
Councillor Maxwell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to reiterate, of course, yes, this is an absolute disgraceful tax. The government are now saying that this tax will invest $110 million to deliver a rolling fleet replacement program for Vic, SES and the CFA and now Fire Rescue Victoria. This is money that should have been already in their revenue. And unfortunately, with the escalating debt this state now has, it's come down to this. However, moving forward, some of the promises that have been made within this legislation that every cent will go to those emergency services, I think is really incumbent upon us as a council to ensure that we can measure where that money has gone. It's not difficult to gain the data on how many CFA stations within Victoria have had new trucks or have been waiting 15, 30 years for trucks. So I think moving forward it will be really interesting to watch that space. Meanwhile, so many people I'm sure will be really hurting from this levy.
Thank you, Councillor Maxwell. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Winters?
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Harvey-Benton, for your motion today, and I congratulate you on your advocacy to the community in this instance. I acknowledge that our farmers will be disproportionately affected by this levy, and it seems incredibly unfair in the cost of living crisis. I look forward to learning and understanding more about where the funds will go, how our community and our emergency services will benefit, and I'm very happy to see the commitment around this table today to keeping people accountable to where these funds will go. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Winters. If there are no other councillors wishing to speak, I'll ask Councillor Benton to give his closing remarks.
I'd just like to make 2 points going forward. This again becomes, the council becomes a whipping horse for the government. We're really putting ourselves against our own community, which I think has got to be pushed back by the community a lot more than what it is. And we have again, time and time again, made to do things by the state government to cover for them. I think it's wrong that we are being pushed more and more to become a whipping horse for the government. The other thing is, this thing has already been passed, it will probably be considered at the moment. It's what is going to happen next year. Is it going to go up another 10% or another whatever they are short for? So we've got to at least arrest next year. We haven't been able to arrest this. I don't know. When you get 400 people on the day that this thing got passed in Melbourne, standing on the government steps in Melbourne, and I was down there on the Thursday, and it just didn't matter. They just don't want to listen to us. And 100% of the councillors opposed the levy being taxed on the motion of the state council, and it was thoroughly ignored. Really, where is democracy? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Benton. I think that's certainly been some of the concern that's been expressed to me, that people feel that they're not being listened to. Regional Victoria is not being listened to. The government are ignoring what we're saying, they're not hearing. We don't even have the opportunity for consultation. So I thank Councillor Benton for putting forward this notice of motion. So we have Councillor Benton's notice of motion seconded by Councillor Bussell. Are we all in agreement, councillors? Thank you. Councillors' notice of motion has been moved. So now we move to, we don't have any urgent business. We move to item 21, which is public question time. And before we open that to questions, there's just a few things that I want to say about public question time. We've had, as councillors, a conversation about the conduct of some of the public question times, and we felt that we probably need to perhaps draw a ring around the actual process. I think the Royal City of Wangaratta is one of the few councils that allows the opportunity of questions to items on the agenda. It allows a fairly open public question time, but public questions are actually meant to be submitted in writing by 10 a.m. on the day of the meeting, which not only allows us the opportunity of seeing a question, but allows us proper consideration of an answer. We can also disallow questions in certain forms. It's my discretion as the chair whether we allow questions to be asked, and certainly those that weren't submitted in advance. But usually we've allowed the questions to go through, and it's been, in the main, quite successful. Questions are limited to 2 per person, unless I give the okay as the chair. We have seen that there's been a discussion or a debate from the floor with councillors, which I don't think is productive or helpful. So perhaps that's something we need to be mindful of. We also, in relation to gallery members, when they ask a question, that we need to be able to call a point of order, because the question becomes either personal or pointed or absolutely unnecessary. It's my responsibility to give direction, and I shall do that. Ask people to stop or sit down, or direct them to leave the meeting should it get to that point. Gallery members can provide some preamble or address as part of their question, but it is actually question time, not an opportunity to get up and have a bit of a rant, because sometimes it's quite one thing to express a concern, but when it becomes a rant, I think it's not helpful to anyone. So, today I just wanted to perhaps preface our public question time with just some, reminding everyone about the the rules and regulations and perhaps, you know, the respect for not only the councillors and the council meeting, but the people in the audience as well, that we all behave in a way that we respect each other and respect, you know, what we have to say. So without further ado, I'll move to public question time, and I have received a number of questions which I will read, and we have a question, we have two questions from Paul Curry, and they will be assigned to Acting Director Coeli Doherty for reply. So question one is, what is the purpose of the community vision statement, and by what criteria do we evaluate its efficacy?
Thank you, Mayor. Under legislation, under the Local Government Act, we do have a requirement to have a community vision, which is the first principle in setting the community vision for council. It also does provide a clear purpose to our strategic direction, and that's why we have invested in this community vision and the process. Coming to how we evaluate that, there are some measures that will be considered and are sourced from the following data sets, including our reporting on the local government performance reporting framework, the Victorian Population Health Survey, and the ABS.
And I think it's worth adding to that too, that it's, I think people like to see a community vision statement as being all things to all people. And as much as we try to achieve that. It's not always possible, but I think it's a guiding principle, and it's something that while it's written, it's something that is also not set in concrete in terms of how we respond to it. So, you know, I've had a number of conversations with Paul over this particular issue, and I hope that we continue to maintain the dialogue. So his second question was, what does a place for all mean in a practical sense? Specifically, are we welcoming people irrespective of skills or the need for social support, i.e. criteria in place with the Federal Migration Act?
Thank you, Mayor. In a practical sense, a place for all means that we're creating an environment where everyone feels welcome, included and valued. And that's, and also that they're able to fully participate. This is regardless of their background, their identity, or their circumstances. In practice, that may look at things like physical accessibility, cultural inclusion, affordability and economic access, and safety and belonging. A place for all doesn't just mean a place where everyone is allowed to be, it means an environment that's designed so that everyone can thrive. And just to note, the council will always act within the legal frameworks of any specific matter that may come up.
Thank you, Tom. I've got another question here from Luke Davies, who submitted the following questions for the May Council meeting and assigned again to Acting Director Tom Coeli Doherty for a reply. The question, two questions were, did the author of the draft community vision statement excuse me, and the author of the Council Plan Community Engagement Report utilise AI? Excuse me.
Thank you. I'll provide an answer to that.
Oh,
so,
excuse me.
The draft community vision statement and council community engagement report were not produced using AI, and whilst council is considering the usage of AI in the first place, at this point in time we haven't endorsed that usage.
Thank you, Tom. Question 2. Can the council notify people via the council website when any document placed on the website for public feedback has been wholly or partly composed utilising AI?
This is definitely something that we can consider. Council's developing a AI policy, and we'll consider how we make people aware of AI content moving forwards.
Thank you. So they're the council questions that have been submitted. Do we have a member of the audience that wishes to ask a question? Sandra.
Sandra Hall. So I've got a couple of questions pertaining to the official council website. There's been a change on the council website that I've noticed over the last 6 months or so. When a draft document is put up for feedback, there is now only one option presented to the public, that they fill out an accompanying survey. It used to be the case that an email address was supplied so someone could easily see where to email in their own written feedback. There's no reason council can't continue using surveys while also informing the public that it is also okay to send in an email as feedback. My request is, alongside providing a link to a survey, also provide an email address for feedback. This needs to happen on the Wangaratta Connect portal. As you probably are aware, most of us have had the experience of filling in surveys, and sometimes they're worded in a way to shape the responses given. So I think this would actually be a benefit to the wider community. It will increase the net of the kind of feedback that we can receive to the council.
Thoughtful response. Do you want someone to answer that now? Yes.
Thanks, Cassandra. I'm not aware that there's been any blanket decision that via a survey is the only mechanism for feedback. I would hazard a guess that we're encouraging survey through a particular form to make sure we try and capture them all in the one place easily. There is a risk when people send in responses, to individual councillors or officers, for example. There is a risk that some of that then doesn't get collated and brought together to help inform whatever the final position is. But I guess the short answer is we are always happy to receive people's responses either via a letter or via an email, in addition to whatever other mechanism that we might promote.
Could that be pointed out on the Wangaratta Connect website?
I can't see any reason why that could not be, Cassandra.
And I think perhaps just to support what the CEO has said, but also to state that part of the role of councillors is to be that sounding board for the community, and that it shouldn't just be an electronic survey or something that we post on our website. The opportunity for discussion and conversation with councillors is always there. In fact, that's an integral part of our role, and the community should always feel that they have the opportunity of speaking to councillors.
Chair, if I may, I might also just add, having just checked the email address the submissions can be made through is actually already included on the Portal Connect page on the website.
Cassandra, you've got a second question?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question in relation to the way council is using images of our national flags on the council website. If you're going to use the website to display icons of flags, shouldn't it reflect that it's actually flying on the council government flagpoles next to this building? Those 3 flagpoles fly our 3 national flags. Can the Australian flag icon be placed on the council website next to the 2 important Indigenous flags?
Someone like to answer that?
Through the Chair, I think the short answer is yes.
Thanks for the question. Thanks, Cassandra. Pudding, may I ask a question? Please. Just state your name for the record, please.
Sure. Claire Russell. Here on behalf of the Wangaratta Historical Society. Just a 1-minute preamble and then I'll ask a question. So since the museum was reopened by the Historical Society last November for the Joseph weekend, we have had 400 visitors to the museum, international, local, all run by volunteers. Over the 2 weekends in May, just past, we were part of the National Trust Heritage Week. So we opened on the 3rd and the 4th and the 10th and the 11th with the display of the Marion Gibson Foot, which everybody here will know about. So we had nearly 100 people through on that weekend. Again, lots of visitors. So we just wanted to let Council know about that, but also lots of questions were asked about the pools for why people couldn't see it. We didn't facilitate that question, we just, because we had to give this layout. So I'm just interested to know, does council receive, like the advisory committee reports, I'm thinking we come under art and culture, the report. Does council receive reports from those committees? How often do they meet? So we would just like our information to come forward, because we think we've done a fantastic job with reopening that museum. New committee, 10 people on the committee, working really hard, which is doing another display at the moment. But interested to know how that gets fed back, so councillors know what's happening in one of, you know, what we think is probably a really important facility for the community, and lots of people tell us that when they come to visit.
Well, Claire, unless your information gets fed through the Arts and Culture Committee or another standing committee, we don't receive that information on a regular basis. I mean, we would, you know, as individuals or even as a collective,
yes,
you know, gain that information when we head across to the museum. And
yes.
but I think it possibly might be worth, you know, looking to find that pathway through an existing committee to be able to ensure that what you've got on your agenda is something that is then made clear to council.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Winters.
Madam Mayor, can I just add that the Arts and Culture Committee will be opening EOIs soon for new members, and please consider applying and encouraging other members of the Historical Society to apply. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. That's great. Yep. Okay. Anyone else for a question? John?
John Bridges from Moyu. This relates to a question that we put into the last meeting out at Moyu. For whatever reason, a system malfunctioned. An answer wasn't be able to be given at the time. I have received since a letter from Brendan. Thank you very much, Brendan, for that. But I want to make sure that the question and the response get on to the minutes of the meeting. Will I be the minutes of the last meeting or the minutes of this?
Thanks, John, for the question. The governance rules require any question taken on notice to be included, and any response that's provided go into the minutes of the next ordinary meeting, so they will appear in the minutes of today's meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, John. Would anyone else like to ask a question?
Is there anybody else?
No, it's not.
Well, there might be somebody sitting behind you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Brian Fox. I would like you to reissue the portfolios to the councillors. I have a definitive list that has all the portfolios, and I cannot find one councillor who is in any way responsible for the maintenance and cleanliness of the CBD. So tell me, yes, you'll.
Well, I won't say yes. The portfolios have been allocated, and what you're talking about, Mr. Fox, is actually an operational issue. Councillors are not personally responsible for the maintenance or cleanliness of the CBD. Obviously, if we hear that there are issues in relation to the cleanliness, that will be something that we will convey to the appropriate person. But no, I'm afraid we've gone through this process. Portfolios are an opportunity for councillors to put some focus in an interest area, but we all share the responsibility of those portfolios across the council. and we all take part in the decision making around what those portfolios might raise or what issues pertain to that particular portfolio. So certainly thank you for your interest, but I'm afraid we've reached a point where we've worked through the process and we're satisfied that the work that's been done by councillors in their portfolio is useful and productive.
I thank you for the extended explanation, but I find the explanation quite amazing. In light of on Thursday, Friday and Saturday, there was a rubbish bin overflowing down in front of in Oven Street, and I've got photographs. What do you think I should do with those photographs? You're telling me to drop them into the garden.
You make a customer action request and inform the council of that particular issue. It's not something that the councillors take on board. Now, Councillor Fox, Mr. Fox, Mr. Fox, you've got another question?
Yes, I do have another question. Will council nominate a named employee to monitor the Sisley Avenue crossing the railway station, Sisley Avenue railway line? The appointed council person needs to be someone who lives in the rural city of Wangaratta so they can monitor on a daily basis what is happening down there. The left lane on Thursday got closed. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday and Tuesday, and it's still closed. And there is no need, in my view, just being a common pastry cook but not an engineer, for that left lane to be closed. I went down there at 2 o'clock this afternoon and spoke to a couple of engineers, and they were completely disinterested in the disruption to the traffic. Now, why I'm saying this needs to be a local person, I live in Swan Street, and from the top of the overpass right down to Swan Street, there's a traffic blockade every afternoon because the Sisley Avenue road is closed. Now, I know that...
Okay, you've asked the question, and I'll perhaps will ask our Director, Mark Goodman, to give a short response to that.
Given where I live, am I able to do that?
Excuse me, Marcus, I'm over here. Look at the microphone, please.
No worries, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
So essentially these works are being conducted by North East Water, not council. Council is engaged with North East Water around the works and how we can make sure that traffic flows better and ensure that there is management representation on site so we can see what's happening. I'm satisfied that that is now happening, and certainly it wasn't happening on Friday. We had a number of conversations with North East Water about that. Unfortunately, when we do major works like this, they are going to cause disruptions. So whether it is council, Inland Rail, or North East Water doing these works, they're going to cause disruption, unfortunately, and that's just something that we're very grateful to the residents who've been living through the Inland Rail works and have dealt with that for coming on 2 years now. So we're hoping that the residents around that Sisley Avenue intersection will be able to deal with these roadworks for a couple of months.
Thank you very much for your fulsome answer.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. You've asked the 2 questions. Would you be kind enough to sit down?
I'm sorry?
You've asked 2 questions, and I'm asking you to take a seat.
Yeah, well, I'm thanking you for a fulsome answer.
Very
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I've got another question here.
No, you've asked 2 questions, and I'm
Madam
quite
Mayor,
clear.
if you are going to conduct question time in this manner, please do count me out.
Well,
I came in here at 2:45 this afternoon, and there were 7 councillors.
Mr. Fox,
please listen to me. There were 7 councillors and 4 or 5 staff all sitting behind the bench. It would have been nice if you'd have been out of the foyer and said, welcome.
Excuse me, Mr. Fox.
I
will now close the meeting.
Can I make one statement about how great the snap, send and save thing is? Brian's talking about any rubbish that's down. I actually do those when I see bins that are overflowed. They are sorted by council staff really quickly, like on the day, and that's a great system. And I know that everyone doesn't have that app on their phone, but it is a really good system because you can do it there on the spot, and council staff are really responsive.
Oh look, and I know that absolutely, and I think sometimes it's difficult to argue with someone who won't get. So look, thank you everyone. And the meeting, as I said, is closed, and we thank you for your attendance.